Broadcasting from the studios of WKEN, where every day is the weekend. It's the Ken Calvert Show with your host, Ken Calvert. And if you have anything nice to say about him, keep it to yourself. And now, here's Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Calvert, and welcome to the Ken Calvert Show podcast. My guest today is another native Detroiter, John Heffron, appearing at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, locally here in Detroit, actually Royal Oak, Michigan. Number to call, 248-542-9900 at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle. Now think about it. Detroit has produced some pretty good talent. I've talked on this podcast with Mike Binder, Tim Allen, Dave Coulier, trying to track down Tom Sharp. And here comes John Heffron. I do not need to do a setup because John Heffron came through the studio doors like a box of Pop Rocks. All I did on the podcast was, so you're out on the road, and he starts from there. I've had a few guests that I've interviewed along the way, and all I've had to do is say, how you doing? For example, Ted Nugent, just get out of the way. Paul Stanley, just get out of the way. John Heffron, I just got out of the way. But for some background, in addition to headlining clubs and appearing at festivals around the world, Heffron remains in high demand as a performer at events. A lot of corporate gigs. For example, Fortune 500 companies like Mercedes, Frito-Lay, Johnson & Johnson. I want to mention he also has 4 releases that you can pick up. You'll find them. You know how to do it. He's got one called Middle Class Funny. It's a DVD, best-selling advice book. I come to you from the future. Everything you need to know before you know it. All of this is available on iTunes and Amazon.com, of course. You can always Google johnheffron.com. I'm going to sit back now. That's about the most talking I did on this entire podcast. So here's John Heffron. Get ready to meet one funny guy. Joining me now live in the studio, appearing here in Detroit, John Heffron. John is appearing at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle. 1 show Thursday, 2 Friday, 2 Saturday. Those of you locally here in Michigan, the number to call is 248-542-9900. Those of you that are flying in from all around the country to see John Heffron at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, the 248-542-9900 will still work. So, you're out on the road.
Yeah.
Life is good.
Yeah.
Your website.
Did you ever have that as when you interviewed guys that gave you one-word answers for every question? Isn't it like literally the yeah, sometimes.
You don't know. You know what? You just hit a nerve with me. That's funny you would do that. Good job.
Yeah.
You know what? That just shouts that you have radio experience.
Yeah, small, for those of you who remember this nasally voice. It's been almost 20 years.
Was it Q95?
Q95. We took over after Dick Burton left.
Yeah.
It was me. And it's weird that you have to, I have to even say this, but it was almost 20 years ago is when that all happened. That's how fast life was. Yeah. They hired Danny Bonaducci to take over Dick Burton. And what Bonaducci was at the time, and I didn't know, he was the guy they would bring into a city to cause a little bit of ruckus. There'd be a format change, and then they'd blow him out and put him in another city where they were going.
Really?
Right?
He was a fixer, if you will?
He was a fixer, right? So then I did really well on Burton's show, enough where Dick said, hey, you should have this young kid, because I was in my 20s at the time. I have a local comedian, so it's not that morning show that comes in that's like, how do you say this? What is it, grass shit? You know what I mean? Like, nobody knows how to pronounce words. So they didn't want, in Detroit's very, protective.
Yep.
So that's how I ended up doing radio on Q95.
But wait a minute, I want to go back just a little bit. You were Were you an intern that Dick decided to use on the air?
No,
Dick
you know
Burton
what
is-
I was? If you go back, because I've done stand-up comedy since I was 17.
I know you went to EMU.
Yeah, I went to OCC first.
Okay, so did I.
And then I was at OCC, and the
Yeah.
history of it is I had I signed up for a forensics class at OCC. And I'm not kidding you. I'm not saying this to try to be funny. I wanted to go
It's
into
gonna be
law
fun.
enforcement. I thought it was forensics as in dead bodies, not competitive speech.
Really?
And I didn't know till I showed up to my Tuesday night class at OCC in Orchard Lake that it was. I'm like, are we just going to talk? Or are we actually going to see dead bodies? 100% true story. So at the time, you know, 18-ish, there was a comedy club in Ann Arbor. At the time, it was called the Main Street Comedy Showcase. That was underneath Savah, was in this basement.
Yeah.
And so you could be 18 years old to go there. So I was just a comedy fan, and I guess to show you how I became a comedy fan, right? You've had Mike Binder on,
Yep.
a billion times,
Yep.
a Detroit comic.
Yep.
My mom worked for Binder Building Company, like.
Bert Binder's dad's company?
Yeah, just like she was always. That's where
Yeah.
like my mom's friends were like Giannopoulos and
Sure.
Binders and stuff like that. And I remember being a little kid. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember meeting Mike. I don't even know how old he was. Maybe late teens, 20s is.
Yep.
And I remember him talking to my mom and saying, "Hey, is this joke funny?" Like I kind of like and my mom was an awesome laugher. I remember her laughing, and I remember being confused as like. Not a little kid, but I remember being kind of confused, like, what just happened right there? He said, is this funny? He told her a story, and and then my mom started laughing. So I had this weird, like, that was cool, but that wasn't a normal, I didn't really get it.
Yeah.
So then my mom bought me George Carlin tapes, Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy, like cassette tapes. And I remember hearing some dirty stuff, asking my mom, what is that? She's like, well, and she just explained it to me. Well, and I'm like, I don't know why that would be funny. So that kind of gave me the bug of being into stand-up when there really wasn't no access to stand-up at the time.
Nope.
So that's the origin story of that real quick. And Mike Binder, by the way, I did my first evening at the Improv when I was like 19 or 20 years old. And he showed up at my show. My mom called him. He showed up at my show, sat in the audience. I got done. He said, great job, man. Take care. And then I never saw the guy again. Now it's been 30 years. But that was, I'm actually friends with his brother. His brother lives 2 houses away from me and helps me with my house. Yeah, Gary Binder. Yeah, it's kind of like a weird.
All right.
But anyway, so back to OCC.
No, wait. Before you go back to OCC, and we will go back to OCC. So you said that there was a block of 30 years. You've seen and talked to Binder since then.
No,
come on.
Not since my evening at the Improv in
No, I'm going to tell you something.
1980,
And I
maybe
can't-
90.
Well, I can't say it. No, never mind. I'll tell you after we get
Okay.
off the air, because I can't tell you. I mean, I know something that you don't, but
Yeah.
something good could happen. Anyway,
yeah.
So anyway, go back to OCC.
So I'm at OCC. So
Yeah.
then I would hang out in Ann Arbor, and we'd go to this Main Street Comedy Showcase at the time is what it was called. And me and some buddies, we'd sit in this one waitress's section just because she was hot, like crazy hot, crazy beautiful. And we're new to bars because we're only 18.
Yeah.
Or maybe we're 18. So we'd sit in her section and we get popcorn and pop and watch the open micers and stuff like that. It was free to get in, I think. And then one of the weeks she came over to us and said, are you guys ever going to sign up for open mic night? And everyone's like, no, we couldn't do that. And I just had done a competitive speech at OCC that was a humorous speach.
Part of your forensics.
Part of my forensics thing.
Yeah.
And then we did ballistic blood splatter right after the speech. No. So, and I did a competition. And I came in second place on this speech competition. And one of the marks was it was really funny but not structured. I remember that as like a note on why I didn't win it, right? It was a funny speech, but it wasn't. And to conclude, I didn't have all that stuff. So then, and I wrote it while I was delivering pizzas in South Lyon. That's where I grew up. So I was wrote the speech. And so when we were at the comedy club at the Main Street Comedy Showcase, this waitress said, "Are you guys going to sign up?" And I said yes, just to impress her. You know, I'm 105 pounds. I'm super dark. There's not a chance I have with this girl, right? But I'm like, yeah, I'm going to totally sign up for that. Let's do it. That waitress is actually Lucy Liu from Charlie's Angels. And it's Lucy. Yeah. So that was Lucy Liu. She went to U of M. And then I think a couple weeks later, I did open mic. I stopped going to the class at OCC because that's when open mic was in Ann Arbor. Yeah. So I think I failed that class, to be honest with you. Yeah. And then I was hooked. And then I did stand-up all through Eastern. That's how I paid for college. So then when I got out of college, I started performing at a lot of colleges because all my material was, boy, don't you hate when your roommates and they bring and you have a bunk bed and like it was all very college specific. And me and one of my best friends, this guy Joel Zimmer, we just keep in mind we were, I don't even know at the time, 21, just kind of fearless. Where I go, let's make an 80s themed comedy show. Right, this was the theme comedy show that was all 80s related. We'll rent out the Royal Oak Music Theater, and we'll put posters up. We'll play. Now, keep in mind, it was 1991. Not a lot of people nostalgic about the 80s yet because we literally just left them, right? But this is...
Keep that idea.
Yeah. So, okay.
I'm going to steal it.
Yeah. So, now that's all comedy is themed comedy shows. But at the time, so we rented out the Royal Oak Music Theater. And looking back, it's crazy how gutsy we were because it was like $5,000 to rent out the theater.
You actually did it?
You had to pay, the staff, and it was
I
a
think
whole
that was
thing.
brass ring back in those days too.
Yeah, so it wasn't, and then we had zero following. Keep in mind, we were like, so. The ticket sales, that thing holds, I don't even know what it holds, but I think we had 30 tickets sold for the show. Right. And Mark Ridley goes, hey, let me get you on Dick Burton's show. Let me get you on Burton's show to promote your guys' thing. He'll do me a favor. Why don't you just come on his show and it'll help sell some tickets. So I go, okay. So I show up there and just crushed. Like I got like the second you walked in, I have to be as funny as I can, as fast as I can the entire time. So it was just one of those magical, I crushed everybody. Doc, everybody who was on Burton show at the time, crushed. Got done. We ended up selling like 400 or 500 tickets for that thing. We still lost money, but it was this. So then that's how then I got on Burton's radar, and then the people at Q95, they were like, who's that guy that was in here? Yeah. And Dick said, you should hire that guy. When he left, it was a whole thing. So that's kind of how that happened.
That's a remarkable story, by the way.
Yeah, the only thing
I share in common with you is that we went to OCC.
right.
And as Mark Ridley once said, it's a high school with ashtrays.
Yeah. No, that was, yeah. So, so I think I'm missing part of my timeline, but I then moved to Chicago, and then I was in Chicago for like a minute, and then I moved to Los Angeles. Right. And then when I got to Los Angeles, I was doing some stuff, but I literally had my stuff moved. I was there 2 or 3 months. And then I get a call from the PD at Q95, this Thom O'Brien guy way back then, and said, hey, we're putting together a morning show here in Detroit. Would you be interested? And I literally still have boxes at my apartment that I haven't opened yet from moving to Los Angeles. And then I go, well, what's the money? And it was more money than I ever saw in my entire life. So I'm like, yeah, I'm coming back to Detroit. Right. So then I came back to Detroit. Now I've been doing stand-up for 10 years with zero radio experience. And then I had to learn, the radio.
Yeah, the critical timing, the pacing.
And with Bonaducci, yeah. I just remember I got fired my first day on Q95. First day.
I wouldn't put him in the category of a great mentor.
First day after I moved back,
no offense,
I literally got fired. So I moved from here to Los Angeles.
Come on.
Back to here. Danny walked out our first day on that show. I heard him yelling, saying, who hired the effing mute? is what he called me.
You're kidding me.
Because what Danny's personality, I mean, I we grew to be friends, but he was like, and then I was just a sidekick going, yeah, but one time I didn't know how to get into those shots. And then what happened, he was so mean to me on air that he made me really popular on the show because everybody felt sorry for me.
You know what? You're absolutely right. You are as a competitor, because I was doing morning radio.
Yeah,
I had to hear about it from other people about how he's so mean to you.
Yeah.
That I was like, well, I like John. I've seen his comedy because
I'm a friendly comic.
Well,
I'm not
I always said that on one of my earlier podcasts that I was like, every PD pushed back on me wanting to marry comedy into my show.
Right.
And I said, forget it. I'm doing it. I'm going to have comedy on. Why not have a great co-host every Thursday?
Right.
And Ridley would bring and drop off a comedian at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And if I can have Jim Carrey or if I can have
anybody.
I mean, back in the early days, we had from Brad Garrett, you name it. And it was like, you guys are now officially co-hosts.
Yeah.
So, you understand how, important comedy was for Dick. And I think I would have to say the two people that really pioneered the fact that it was important to have comedians on the radio. And I'm going to take credit for this because I did it.
Right.
I stuck true to it, got in a lot of trouble for it, and Dick just owned it.
Yeah, he made his show he would just say hello and goodbye, and his show was hilarious.
Dick Burton wanted to see your jokes before the comedians I know, right?
That's the hardest thing, and you do that as a comic. Even let's say 5 years ago, I roll into whatever city that I would be in performing. I would do 4 or 5 morning shows in every city.
Yep.
Every week I would do. So you saw everybody's different style of morning shows. And some morning shows, and nothing bugs me more, but I kind of I can say nothing bugs me more, but I kind of get it at the same thing because I was on both ends. They go, we need leading questions. And then you go, I'm going to need 3 leading questions. And, when you're newer, you go, okay, ask me about my toaster. So I just got married, and then you give the questions to the jock, and they were either really good or crazy horrible, right? About setting you up. Yeah. Because what would happen is you'd go, so John, heard you got a new toaster. What's the toaster like? And then the second you'd start talking, the news chick would start yip-yapping, and you're like, is there a reason why? If you're going to ask me a question, can we not have the news person talk over?
Yep.
So that would happen a lot. So then, over time, they'd say, we need leading questions. And I would go, have them ask me how I'm doing. And I'm not going to leave any dead air. I'm not going to, and nobody would trust me. Nobody would trust me. One guy tried to throw me under the bus. He's like, this guy right here thinks he doesn't even need any leading questions. John, what about elephants? How do you feel about elephants? Like he said, he tried to, because there was a phase of radio where everybody was mean to you.
Yep.
Like that was the morning show was, hey, we're edgy. We have edge in the name of our call letter.
It's working for Howard Stern, so we're going to do it.
So they would all try to, almost gang up on you.
Yeah, they wanted to gang up on you.
And it was a funny show.
I love the way you killed Heffron this morning.
Yeah, that was the era. So then, then through radio, now I do, when I'm in the city, even a city here like Detroit where I'm from and actually did radio, I probably won't do any, or I'll do 1 or 2 stations just because morning shows now are so, radio's like, he's going to say something offensive, and let's only have him on for 90 seconds. I did a show here. I won't even say their name. I literally worked with the guy. Went to their show to do. Woke up at 4:35. Yeah. And I was on, I would say, 60 seconds to 90 seconds.
Yep.
And then they go, thanks, everybody. There was John Heffron. He's at Mark Ridley's Comedy Cast.
Funny guy.
And I was like, did I swear? I must have accidentally swore.
Yeah.
They're kicking me off the show because I said something. And they go, we have our, research shows that people don't want to hear long interviews.
Yep.
And then I would go, no, research shows that people want to hear people talking that's interesting.
Right.
But now that's where I was such a radio geek. I know we're all over the place, but
No,
but
I do want to say one thing real quickly. Unfortunately, and I go back and forth with all sorts of consultants, and I have very good friends. Fred Jacobs, I adore, and we argue about this all the time. I do believe that great content will always beat a good song, and
I can create a song. I can create whatever station somebody has.
Yeah.
I can create that on my phone with zero plugs for the Cruise for Women Only or the Jingle Ball.
Right.
That's happening on your station.
Well,
I can create that music. I listen for the jocks or the talent, but I don't know. Are they even out there anymore?
What they're doing, and I get it. I guess I understand it because I have so many great friends still doing morning radio. But what they're doing is they're taking your comedy and asking you to basically stick around to do the podcast where they can really expose your humor. And then somebody will go back and grab 2 or 3 or 4 really compelling bites, shorten it up to 30 to 45
a lot
seconds.
Of explosion.
And say, boy,
here's what you missed on this morning.
Or the next day, John Heffron was in the studio.
Yeah.
If you missed it, here's what you missed.
Yeah. I did one once. We're walking in the back, and you can tell the guy goes, But
you can't be pissed off at radio.
No.
At the end of the day, you can't because they're still trying to promote the product and put some people, some fannies in the seats. And radio sometimes has to take the good with the bad when it comes to the comic. Now, you're a slam dunk. John Heffron, Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, back home, legacy personality here in Detroit. So you don't really need to do it. In your case, I would think of it as more of a favor.
I don't know if it helps anymore.
I would think of it more as a favor for you to come in and do the show, get up at 4:30 and do it. But I would not let the PD.
I enjoy doing it. There are some stations around the country that are awesome to do. There's a guy in Tampa, Mike Kelta, who when you're on a show,
Torgan Elliott in Columbus.
Those guys, you're like, you guys didn't even take a break yet. They're like, yeah, we don't have to. Like you go, this is so much fun. Like I've had, but there's other times, if the there are a lot of stations where the DJ has like a handle still. Hey, it's Hot Wax. Yeah. Hey, it's Cheese Ball. Cheese Ball 715. 15, like everyone. Like I know if there's one name in the thing, I'm like, you guys are gonna play War of the Roses or Battle of the Sexes or something. And that type of stuff is very 80s-y and very just what. But I'm such a radio geek. Like that's why, being with you, I just remember. When I was in high school, now it's funny. Older people should do it with news stations. Have stickers of what news channel they listen to on their thing. Because when I was in school, you'd open up. Everybody had lockers, and you would see nothing but you'd see riff stickers.
Yeah.
And everybody's locker had riff stickers, and those guys, their shirts went about to their elbow. There was very distinct who you were by. The radio station defined you. You'd have wheels. Then you'd have da-da-da. And then this was your...
it started W4, WABX, WCSX, WLOZ, WRIF.
Yeah.
And WRIF, you're talking about legacy radio stations as well.
But gave you an identity as a kid.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Because I've aged out of it, I don't know if that happens now. I don't know if anybody cares.
It does, and I follow it just because I'm fascinated by it, and I want to see where it's headed and what the future is. So I follow the younger talent, and sometimes the younger talent will fire back a really kind note like, oh my God, I listened to you when I was 14. And I go, okay, that's a great thing to tell me, but that makes me feel really, really old. But you still have a great passion for and I like the not art. Necessarily a love for radio.
I love the art of it.
But you will give it some credit for starting, or at least being a component of your comedian.
100. Here's what it did. So when I was
let me just say your comedy constitution, if you will.
100%.
Okay.
Because after the fact, I was a way better radio guest. Now, listen, people listening now might not agree, but as like a guest on other people's show, I know I'm there to sell tickets. So me just hemming and hawing and not jumping into a bit, even if is a waste of my time waking up at 4 a.m. to do the show. So I'm there to sell tickets. Yes. So I do that. It also gave me when I was in LA the first time, I was new. I was kind of doing horrible at the clubs. I came back to Detroit. I was on Q95. I felt like a pseudo celebrity. You know, you'd go to appearances. You know, I was hanging out with Detroit Red Wings. I had some money. I had a beautiful house in Clarkston. So just as a guy feeling accomplished, it was an awesome time in my life.
Absolutely.
Like it was awesome. Even though I was a sidekick, but then I got good at it.
Yeah.
I knew exactly. I know what I'm going to say here. I'm going to do this. He's going to make fun of me because guys that have one gear are easily manipulated. So I would purposely go, I'm going to be so that worked. And then what happened once, you know, that radio show's gone, then they brought in somebody else. And then I went through, you know, I think it was me and this Kevin O'Neill for maybe a second, who I love Kevin O'Neill.
Great guy.
I love Kevin O'Neill as a disc
guy.
jockey. I could listen to just all day, that jock boss. I just love Kevin O'Neill. And then they brought it, maybe there was somebody else in between there. And then it started feeling like I came with the studio, where it was, you know, they bring in these guys from other cities and they click them with me, but I'm like the old cart machine that happens to be, and that guy's like, wait a minute, I've got my sidekick named Booger. How come Booger can't come? You know, and they would have that thing. So then it ended with this me and Steve Cochran. Who was on the show, who I loved the show. Steve was funny. It was, you know, adult show. So we got canned. It was one of those literally, you know, to all the brains. I remember the song Celine Dion being played. We went to break and we never came back. It was, you know, one of those, and there was literally like a U-Haul in front of, like, we literally went to break, and, you know, hey, everybody, I'm doing an appearance at, I'll be at the Velvet Lounge in Pontiac. And then the next, you know, then guess what? That's not happening. So then, so I got fired.
But I got to go here for a second.
Yeah.
Because at some point, the content, the humor of John Heffron had to come from somewhere. So I kind of want to go there if we can, because of the fact that you're a funny guy. But you're unique, and I think people, you're one of those, mark this date on your calendar, John Heffron is coming through town. So on the radio, you took that same sort of a character, that same sort of a personality, same sort of content, put it on stage, and then you developed the hell out of that because, Last Comic Standing?
Yeah, so... You know, and before...
After radio. Let's go after radio.
Okay, so I get canned from radio, and then I have a house in Clarkston, and it was dating a girl, then it's, oh, my life's over. What am I going to do? I lost my job in this house. So I moved back to Los Angeles, you know. And that's the thing. If you're listening to this and you're in your 20s, boy, going back to the starting line is not it's a short walk.
Yeah.
Like at 25, you think, what am I going to do? I might have been a little bit older, but boy, my life is... So I got fired, went back to L.A. I was in L.A., auditioned for Last Comic Standing a month after I left radio here in Detroit and got on Last Comic Standing. So it was one of those things where if I didn't get fired from that station at that time, I would be 3 weeks later pumping people's gas for 95 cents, 0.5 cents from 2 to 4 at the shoe, you know, having to do appearance at the shoe hut, you know, so it was one of those perfect things. So, and then Last Comic happened, and then that's kind of when, you know, I've had some Tonight shows and specials before all of the, like Last Comic happened and stuff. There was, you know, some time in between there on the
Talking about Binder, were you a Comedy Store guy?
Nope, I never... Until recently, after 30 years, now I'm finally, I hang out there, but I was just on the road, and I have been for 36 years, or 30 years, being gone 36 weeks a year, I'm sorry. You know, just because there's been a lot of demand, and then it slows down, like any career. It goes from, you know, there was a time where I sold out 5 shows at the Royal Oak Music Theater.
When did you decide what the content would be for, like, the Tonight Show? I'm always fascinated by that.
When I did it, you had to do material that you thought was going to then be your sitcom. So it was like, that's what Tim Allen did. It was like, oh, man. So you had to spoon feed it. That was then. Now Tonight Shows, you can do 100 of them and it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. Literally, that stuff won't add butts to the seat, or it's kind of a weird time.
I sort of, no offense to Jimmy Fallon, but I always think Fallon kind of over ingratiates.
And plus, they're all
how funny the comic, how funny the comic was.
Plus, you age out. Like, I'm not that old. I'm only 48. The material I talk about's always been clean.
Yeah,
I've never talked about
had that conversation
political.
Just the last podcast with Craig Shoemaker.
I've always talked about what's going on in my life.
Yep,
and
you have. That's absolutely true.
And there's a whole generation or people that are like, you're in our wheelhouse, that will, because I'll be on stage and I'll mention 12 Oaks and merry-go-round and, and just stuff that people, the Grandy Ballroom, especially when I'm in
that was my my
the
place.
hayloft. Everybody had the hayloft. Make sure you come on down to Pontiac. The Barnstormers. So that's why. So as I get older, but I've made a conscious effort to that I don't write material for 19-year-olds. Like, I have friends my age that pander to younger crowd. Like, hey, I smoke pot. Where am I? And I just refuse to do that. As I get older, I'm going to talk about getting older. And guess what? If I end up doing shows in Branson at 4 p.m., that's going to be a perfect life. You know what I mean? Like, you reach an age where you realize I don't need to be up past 10 for any reason.
You're totally preaching to the choir.
Yeah,
totally preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
But do you remember specifically what was the content you based it on? Do you remember? I mean, I'm always curious. I know that you said that Tim based it on. I think I like that, by the way, the fact that you said.
It's funny. I think my first Tonight Show, I did a thing about how I'm getting older because I'm almost 30, which is hilarious to me. Yeah, that's like, oh no, I'm almost 30. What's this gonna? And then the second one was when I was just getting married. I remember the bit. I did one bit on the Tonight Show, and then that got me 2 deals at 2 different networks. And the joke was, and I've retired this, and I'm also retiring all my marriage material. We'll leave it at that. But but my joke was, hey, I look at a young guy and go, hey, did you know when you get married, your wife moves in with you, and then when she moves in with you, she'll make you get rid of things like your roommate. And then I went, I miss Rob. Me and Rob had the greatest relationship ever. Never once did Rob ever jump up onto the couch and stick his toes under my butt because they were cold. Don't get me wrong, I love my wife, but I miss Rob. So that was like the version of the joke I did, right? But at the time, then NBC looked at that one little bit and went, wait a minute, here's a show. You're newly married. And your wife doesn't know how to handle you, so she's always got to get your ex-roommate because you guys actually never, it was always a thing. And then we had, then you'd meet with writers. They would meet you in a coffee shop, and they would talk to you for
the show was called
5 minutes. I think it was called I Miss Rob or something. And then they'd talk to you for 5 minutes, and then they would leave, and then they'd give you a sitcom that had nothing to do with, they literally could click in anybody. So it wasn't. So then when I became a stepfather, when I was married, we were same thing. I had this stepjohn thing about having a stepdaughter and having to deal with same thing. Met with writers who could literally just wrote nothing from my act. And my act's always been super personal. And everyone's like, did you grow up in my house? It's like you're spying on my family, but nobody. So
that's why people really, really like you.
Yeah, that's where the magic.
Sort of the Sally Field of comics. I gotta tell you.
Yeah, that's kind of where I've missed. And I'm not saying I missed my boat or I'm upset about anything because who knows what the future lies. But that's kind of I never was.
Well, you
able.
said it was a short walk in the 20s, right? Don't get discouraged because it's a short walk to the next stage of your life.
Yeah,
you said that earlier.
Yeah,
is it a longer walk now?
No, I'm kind of excited because I'm going through a thing where I get to kind of reinvent myself now. I get to do a lot of things that, but you do kind of start to feel, are you aging out? Are you, because you don't want to be the comic in the late 40s with a hoodie on stage trying to, swearing like it looks,
right.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of do start to think, maybe it's a
phase. Eminem look on stage.
Yeah, when you go, okay, when is it too much?
When your hands become the joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, but who knows? But now, especially
unfortunately, we're not on video. You had to see us.
Now with podcasts like you're doing or stuff that you can take control and do so much stuff yourself now.
Yeah.
That. If I decided to do a podcast, it would take a little bit to build.
Oh, you'd be awesome.
But I could build a following.
Sure.
And then that from there, because that's kind of what people...
Do a startups a favor and don't do it yet. I'll tell you.
Yeah,
I'll green light you down the road.
Yeah, what you do is you spider web it, where you get a bunch of good podcasts in the same thing.
Yeah. Well, what you want to do is you want somebody like you to tweet this podcast, which I hope you will do.
I will do one.
But anyway, right now, so you see, because I'm fascinated by the content of the comedian.
Okay.
And I did this with Binder. I did it with Coulier. I did it with Tim Allen. Tim is so happy to be back in the nest, if you will, last man standing.
Yeah.
He's so comfortable in that element. And so is Dave with Fuller House. You know?
Yeah.
And Mike is boy, he's got branches going everywhere. You know what I mean? He's just a fascinating guy to talk to. But again, one thing in common, all from Detroit, and all with genuine content. And
I don't know why there's other cities. There's I forgot what Dennis Leary does, but it's a Boston, Comics Come Home Boston, and it's for Boston Five. It's a really good organization, and all the Boston guys come and they do a huge theater, and it gives I don't know why Detroit guys have never put together something that big. Even with the guys that you just said. Don't even throw me thinking
idea.
I need to be in the mix on that. But I don't know why. There's so much Detroit good comedy talent. I don't know why everyone hasn't gotten together once for some big show. You should do that and have that.
Yeah, you think about Lowell Sanders, too, who has just
Lowell opens up for Tim all the time.
Lowell's perennial opener for Tim Allen, and I think he's more than comfortable.
Even
just
the new
doing
ones,
that.
Mike Costa, J. Chris New, but there's a lot of guys.
I worked with this young man, Nate Brewster.
I worked with him,
Nate Armbruster, rather. I want to say it correctly for him, but and it's just like, he did a thing on banking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was like, applying for an application for a loan. You know what I mean? I was like, how do you make that funny? And it was funny.
Yeah,
it was very, very funny.
Yeah.
So. I would right now, if I were to be a comedian, I would be talking about the fact that on a couple of occasions, I've been put on a drug, and I'm all about the, you may want to hang yourself.
Oh, right.
You may have violent diarrhea.
Right.
Then again, you may not get off the throne for 15 days.
Right.
You know what I mean? Do not drive your high-low around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
What? Don't drive my high-low around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, what are you bringing to the stage right now?
Let's see, my last album that I just released, this time last year, that's just crushing it online. You can get it on Pandora or Spotify, but it's literally, I did, you'll like it, I did a radio thing. It's called John Heffron, The Laughs You Deserve from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today. And I had a radio imaging guy do fake, and my buddy who lives here in town, Eric Harthen, who's on a bunch. They did like fake radio guys,
good and funny,
in between each every bit, so it sounds like you're listening to the John Heffron radio station. That was my homage to radio. So now,
wait! I've got a shill for it. It's www.johnheffron.com.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's
W or K John. Yeah.
Okay, so all the information is available. I mean, if people hear this, they may want to look into it. So
Or
where should they go? What is your access focal point for people to get in touch with you?
Well, if you want to do this, now this is if you're listening, this is a legit thing.
I hope they're listening. I don't think we've lost them yet.
If you want links to all my albums that you can listen to for free and stuff, if you have your phone out right now, if you text the word John, John, to the number 90210, just text John to the number 90210. You'll get an autoresponder that with the links to my Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Pandora. It doesn't keep your number. It's just an autoresponder, and it'll push it, and you won't ever get a text after that.
John.
So it's John to the number 90210.
You are so 2018.
Yeah, right?
Man.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest way.
You are killing it.
Yeah.
John, You text John
to the number 90210. Now, I got that number. That cost me a little bit.
I bet it did.
But that way people at shows will remember it from the TV show. Unless you're 25, then those are just random numbers to you because you don't even know what TV show we're talking about.
I saw this, I think it was Wikipedia. This is what they say about you.
Yeah.
Energetic and accessible. Acclaimed stand-up John Heffron shares an array of relatable experiences from childhood through life and as a married father.
Yeah, we're going to have to add a sentence to that, aren't we?
Okay, well, that isn't me. That's Wikipedia, and I think they allow you to do that. They have to make a donation.
They don't know what's been going on in my life in the last 6 months, but we'll change.
You're on the road 36 weeks a year?
Yeah, I'm a lot. I do a lot of corporate events because my act is so clean and stuff that's where my bread and butter is. I do, big fortune, you name it. The company, the convention, I'm there in front of thousands of people for their yearly event, or I host their event, and I probably do that more than comedy clubs.
And the company says, you're bringing John Heffron back,
and
right? It's like, oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't step on toes. I don't, there's a lot of, especially now with this political thing, a lot of comics are like.
Folks, we're by the way, recording this on November 6th, Election Day. And the midterms, and I'll be so glad when 8 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
Can we move on?
I made a conscious choice, and it just my act never where, yes, you can make a change and blah, 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 but I'd rather not be lectured to. So I look at my comedy. In the comedy world, I'm not as cool as other comics, but I look at myself as a distraction for whatever pain you have going on in your life. So you come to my show, I'm not going to touch anything that's probably, and this actually happened when I was, and I don't know the family's name, or I wouldn't even say it if I did, but this happened here at the Comedy Castle here when I was in Detroit. I got a letter from this family that, I'm here right around the same week every year for 15 years, right? So their parents would always come with the kids and they'd see me. Then their dad ended up getting cancer, and their thing was he was going to make it to the next John Heffron show because I came right around Thanksgiving every single year. So then they came and saw the show last year, and then a couple months later he passed. Oh. And she wrote this thing just going what a great experience it was, and I was the thing that kept they're like, John's coming November. So that really stuck with me to go, what if that's the show that I decide to tell you guys that chicken should be cage free, or here's my political. Nobody wants to hear it from me. My voice is too nasally and slurry to be a voice of a generation. So I'm just a distraction. I'm just and it's 90 minutes of, you get to take a breath. You don't have to overly think. Nobody's going to challenge your belief system on anything. You have some laughs. You eat some chicken tenders. And then you go home, and then it's all, whatever your life is back at you. Yeah. So that's how I kind of...
people don't remember it, but as a kid growing up, there used to be a commercial for Calgon. And I don't know what it was, but you could put it in your bathtub or whatever, and it would be Calgon, take me away.
Yeah.
And it was like that 1 hour where the mother or the father, whatever, could just sit there and be left alone and not have to think about anything but their own relaxing time.
Yeah, not with Xanax, I believe. I think Xanax they took that motto.
We took a few before we started the program, ladies and gentlemen. Just kidding, of course. Ken Calvert was just kidding when he made that announcement. But no, I'm so on board one thing that you said, because I've always rolled, even when I worked at a highly conservative radio station. It was news talk, and I would not participate in the arena of anger. Yeah. And I've always concentrated on what unites us rather than divides us.
Yeah.
So why not roll with that, especially on the radio? Why do you want to divide your audience? Boy, luckily I left radio back in 2017. But it's gotten so ugly out there that I would rather be Calgon, take me away.
And I'm always confused with the people who buy into the ugliness, because just from being on both ends, I know the people on air are saying what they're saying, so you buy their apocalypse food buckets,
Right.
And it's all a sham. Like some of the big, the D2C stuff that is so crazy, but they're all performance artists. They're only saying it to get, so there's nothing genuine. Even if you think your guy's this huge political guy and he says something so crazy, people are calling him mad. It's all you're being played.
Right.
Like you're just being played. It's just all an act.
Well,
on every one of them.
Yeah, but,
I know friends of mine who like work for Fox. They're like news anchors. I know them personally. I don't agree with everything they say, but I know that you have to flip that switch, or guess what? They lose their jobs. So they might not even believe on both sides, on the other side. So that's why I stopped listening. I try to go.
So did I.
I'm going to read my news in sentence long facts,
Right.
and I don't want to hear an opinion about it.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree with you more because I've always lived by that standard.
Yeah.
Again, I think let's unite, let's not divide, folks. And I'm not trying to be
no, but
bully pulpit here.
You kind of got to make I find nothing
I
wrong
like
with
making nice with people,
making positive louder. You can make
Yeah.
positivity louder.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
but
Well, I want we've rolled out here now just about 45 minutes
Nice.
or so, but no, this has been. And I know you got stuff to do, and I want you to be able to.
I got nothing. I got
do.
nothing but drive around beautiful Michigan in the fall.
So
Hit up some places that I don't.
It's back
I think I'm
and
gonna
forth.
hit Genopolis's, get some ribs.
Oh yeah, you got to get those. Will you please tell the Genopolis brothers that I said hello?
Yeah,
when
they were
you go
such
up there?
good friends with my
Those
mom.
of you that
It
are
was-
listening, are they?
Well, yeah. My mom passed away years ago, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna go sit in her booth today.
Yeah,
I
my
think, and
uncle
sit
Chuck.
there.
That's where. Where do you want to go? Genopolis.
Yeah,
We gotta go
Phyllis
to
used to cut my
Genopolis.
hair right at there.
Yeah, that's
what,
right.
1850? I forgot it, but there used to be a little barber
For
right
those
there.
of you that aren't in our immediate area, if you're ever in the southeast Oakland,
Yeah.
Michigan area, you got to stop on by Genopolis.
I just love that street. Now, if you're not in the Detroit area,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to do that.
No, please
This-
do.
But that whole street there, I remember like Orchard Lake Cinemas, right? Orchard 12 is where I saw Star Wars. And then remember you'd go down and Tally Hall was right there.
Oh, yeah.
Like I try to explain Tally Hall to people. And here's what Tally Hall, for those of you who aren't from here, all it was a food court. But this is pre-food court. Like malls kind of didn't have. So you go to this place, and it was like a food court. I remember they had a karaoke singing thing where you'd go in there and you'd sing in a booth, and then they'd give it to you in a cassette. I was like, this is unbelievable. We would go all the
No, it's
time.
called Dave and Buster's or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah, but it was just,
I don't know.
Bonaventure rolling, the roller rink. Ugh.
Anything that anything else you want to share? I know you're going to have lunch with your dad here shortly.
Yeah.
How's your dad? I'm always curious because Binder always gives me a good story about his dad. Has a funny story about his dad.
My dad's excited to come to these shows because he's convincing me to do old material.
Oh yeah.
He wants me to do stuff that I think is so old, but some of my
God
original
bless your
stuff.
father, yeah.
And he's like, you have to do it. It was and it was all kid stuff. It was all kind of classic John Heffron.
Yeah.
If there was a classic. And this week at Ridley's, I'm going to re-record some of my older stuff so I can put it up online and I actually get paid for it. Because
No kidding.
other people own the performances that I've done, even though they're my jokes. So my new way to get them
Sounds like rock and roll.
is I'm going to re-record.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Carole King, I was at her studio, weird story, and talked to her for like a second, right? And we were talking about doing corporate gigs, and I guess that's what she does with some of her songs.
Yeah.
She doesn't own Tapestry, right? Whoever the record company, but she has the original masters. So then she just will re-record the voice over the master, but that's a different recording than the one that they own. So it's a whole. So I'm doing that this week. I'm going to do some classic bits just to re-record them, so I own them.
Ooh.
So I'm excited.
There's a tease right
Yeah,
there,
it's gonna
ladies
be
and
good.
gentlemen.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I bet you are. Because I've always said, and I'll say this about Tim, I'll say it about Coulier, I'll say it about you, and Kathleen Madigan.
Oh, yeah, I
I
love
said to
Kathleen.
Lewis Black. I've said it to Gaffigan. I said to him once, and he got all pissed at me. And I said, do you just, as an encore, do you do Hot Pockets? Oh. And I thought he was going to, walk out on me. It was like, come on, man. People kind of like...
for me...
How do you not tell people about Hot Pockets?
Yeah. Well, for me, I have a weird head case when I do perform in Detroit at the Comedy Castle because I've done it now for almost 30 years. Ridley was I think the first guy to ever headline me. And this is just my ego. Yeah. I assume everybody in the show has seen me all the time. So all my material so all my material is old to them, where there's probably a lot of people who haven't seen me do bits that are on my first album that I recorded at Ridley's in 1991.
Don't you realize how
I'm bringing that back.
Don't you realize how the generations work? The first timers want to bring the second generation. They say, he's so funny, he does this bit. Yeah. And the second generation goes, he didn't do that bit. Yeah. And so I remember the same thing with rock and roll, and we'll end with this and I'll let you go. Rock and roll finally realized these bands went out in 3-packs, REO, Styx, and Ted Nugent. Right. And they realized one thing. They're not going to have nearly as much time to kill, all right? They don't have a full 90 minutes, all right? So they've just got like 40, 40, 40. Yeah. And they realized, let's just do the hits. Yeah. And people go home going, yeah, baby, that's it. That's what I came to see. Yeah, so
And if you don't hear him, I remember seeing Cheap Trick recently, and me and my buddy kept screaming, play the flame, like the whole, and he never played the song. I just remember screaming that. This is the whole concert. Right. Yeah,
I love the flame. That's a great song. And the Dream Police was another one that I just like. What is your Dream Police?
Yeah. Well, I used to live right next to Pine Knob, and I'm calling it Pine Knob. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, everybody does.
So I used to live.
I think they're going to eventually go back to naming it Pine Knob. They really should. It should just be DTE's Pine Knob.
Yeah, like why? Yeah, give us people with nostalgia. Yeah. Do we have to take all of the nostalgic stuff away?
Yeah, the whole 80s thing is working again, DTE, so just leave us alone and bring it back, all right?
Thank you.
People will know. Yeah, people will know.
Rick Springfield was my first concert there.
Is that right?
Rick Springfield Tau. Wow. I remember it because I bought a sleeveless shirt.
And it was the only Jesse's girl on it?
Yeah, it was the only sleeveless shirt that I've ever bought or never wore. So there you go.
It wasn't still a tank top. It was a sleeveless.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Sorry. Ready for Camp Dearborn or something.
I want to thank you so much, man. This was great. I've never had a chance to just sit down one-on-one with you for almost an hour. All right. I will see you this weekend, my friend.
All right.
John Heffron, once again, how do we text and get all
text
the
word
info?
John, John, to the number 90210. You'll get all my links to all my new albums, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Say hello.
We look forward to seeing you 3 nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, 248-542-9900. See you next time on the Ken Calvert Show podcast. Thanks, John.
You can subscribe to the Ken Calvert Show podcast on Apple iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. It's also available by going directly to www.thekencalvertshow.com. You can reach Ken at kencalvertpodcast@gmail.com. The preceding program is the property of Ken Calvert and may not be broadcast without the written permission of Ken Calvert, unless you want your knees broken.